All right, we're doing episode 33.
33.
And I had one thing that I wanted to bring up before the two things that I posted earlier, I assume, which we're all good with.
Sure, yeah.
When I told you that I watched that Vice video, we're talking Vice video about the...
Oh, yeah.
What was the title of it? The conspiracy...
I'll find it right now.
It's the crisis actors.
Yeah, so the rise of the crisis actor conspiracy movement.
Yeah.
The only thing that I want to bring up from that, and I thought it was good to start with, it'll be quick, real quick. Chad probably hasn't watched it, so Chad, you can kind of you did? Okay, good.
Yeah.
You can kind of tell from that title. It's just basically a video about how there are people who are acting like all of these like mass shootings are faked, and the people in it are fake, and it's just the government posing to get it sounded like gun reform.
Yeah.
So the only thing I want to bring up from that is as far as being a Facebook or an Instagram or a Twitter, don't you think that there's a little bit of a responsibility on those? And it said at the end of the video that one of the pages did get shut down. But Jesus, we don't live in a world where it's difficult to find these pages and shut them down if you're Facebook from day one, I feel like. And if it is, fine, I'll take back what I said. But I feel like they could have been not. And this is where it gets tough, which is why I wanted to bring it up and see what you guys thought. I feel like you could have just shut down these like conspiracy hoax theory pages from day one. Like, why do you let these things fester? Now, there's definitely, I don't even think it's that much of an argument to be made, but there is one to be made about like, oh, should you just let people say what they want? But it's like, come on, if Facebook or Twitter is a private organization and they say, no, F you, we're not going to let you like post this, they should do that, and they should be able to do that, I think. But
the problem that arises there is who's deciding the morals of what is and isn't okay?
What does it matter? It's a private organization that grants you access to share stuff on that site. Why is that not
the point of places like YouTube and the point of places of Twitter is supposed to be just a forum where you can socialize, right?
Yeah, but is it not privately owned?
Yeah, it is, but
okay.
When everybody's using it as a place for, like, especially something like Facebook, man, a lot of people use Facebook, and what if Facebook started deciding to hardline filter out some content that wasn't like immoral or shady, but just stuff that they disagreed with?
I think where Chad's point
matter.
is that if you use this private organization as a way to filter out hardline ideas or ideologues, if you will, right, of far left or far right things, I mean, how appropriate is that, even though you're a private company?
It doesn't matter. It's a private... Okay, so I don't understand why you couldn't just take your services and open a page on a competing website. Like, these things, obviously...
I'll tell you what. Name one competing website to Facebook. Go.
There's tons of social media sites. I can't name them off the top of my head, but there definitely is. We could do
That's
it like
the
Google.
Point, Cyril.
Hey, no, stop. That's not the point. That's not the point, because I don't give a fuck if everybody's on Facebook. If they want to shut you down for the hateful things that they view that you're saying, you can just take your services and go to another website. The point isn't that
you don't know services to another website where I don't have any friends.
Hang on.
Right.
The point isn't that they're not there. The point is that it's really easy to start these companies. It's not like 100 years ago where to start a company, you needed a bunch of capital and you could dominate the marketplace.
Facebook
dominates because people choose to be on there.
That it is a community. It is a huge community that a lot of people are a part of. People don't like to change, dude. All of this stuff came out about the data breach. I don't understand.
So basically, what we're saying is, you guys are saying is, you want to regulate Facebook and tell them that they have to let everybody on. They can't just be a private company and say you don't have the right to.
Not regulating them. I'm saying censorship is a slippery slope.
It's a private company. That's my argument.
I'm not saying they don't have the right to do it. I'm saying it's a slippery slope.
And the other
I don't give a shit, though. That's their right to do it.
It
doesn't matter if
it is. Of course it is.
No,
still a slippery slope. Especially when you're hosting online communities and then you start to be able to screen whatever these people are seeing. You're saying that doesn't feel a little weird.
I don't
like. Yeah, I get what you're saying about hate groups. Sure, we can probably target the
No,
easy
I don't even
targets,
care about
right?
that.
The crisis actor Facebook groups.
It doesn't matter. They can choose whoever the hell they want to be on there.
I'm not saying they can't. I'm saying it's a bad idea.
No. Well, and the other thing, Cyril,
and they do it already.
Hold on.
And I think
when you talk about it, hold on. When you talk about it from a business perspective, what benefit do I have to kick people off of my platform? Realistically.
No, I agree, and that's why those things exist on there for a while before they get removed, because they're just a slave to making the money in the bottom line. There's no question about it. There's absolutely no question about it.
So I think ultimately what Chad's trying to say, though, is that when it comes to censorship, right? Look at Twitter, for example. Didn't Twitter try to go through this whole thing where they had a council that went through going through like safe tweets and who's allowed to say what, and a lot of people were kicked off of Twitter.
You have to literally.
And what happened to Twitter?
I don't know if that happened. That sounds right. That sounds like it probably did happen. Twitter is notoriously the most uncensored social media, though. There's porn stars on there and stuff. So I
think that's what people were complaining about. Is I can't tweet about.
They're still on there.
Far right ideas, but you can have porn stars on there.
Right.
Right, and you're right, Cyril. Ultimately, it's the choice of Twitter, a private corporation, to do what they want with it, but it significantly impacts their bottom line.
Well, Cyril, I'm looking at straight porn on a porn star's Twitter right now. So, the censorship is very low still.
We're not talking about porn. We're talking about ideas.
Right.
I'm saying Twitter is notoriously uncensored, and it still is. That's all I was just saying. And I just looked up.
So what point are you making bringing that up? Because like Milo Yiannopoulos was kicked off of Twitter, right? He was kicked off of Twitter for saying that. I think. What's the comedian's name?
You're right.
Leslie Jones, looked like a man. Was the implication?
I'm sure he didn't get kicked off for that.
Hold on. It was between that. No, it was between that and also like the claim was that he.
I think he said she looked like a monkey too, which is much worse than a man, and
true.
We both know it. Okay.
Very true. But I think the claim was that he incited a lot of people to tweet at her very disrespectful things. And I don't know the full details of that, but the point is that
I just think
where do you draw that line?
Well, see, that's a little different.
This is where I draw the line. You ready? You can say what you want. Nobody can control your speech. But we have this medium called the internet, and the private people control these websites, and they can kick you off if they want. And can we have a separate discussion, Chad, where that's a slippery slope inside that company? Fine, we can do that. And I think you're right. But that's not the point. That's not the legality of it. That's not like.
Would you be okay if Google did that?
They can kick whoever they want out. What do you mean? Would I be okay? They already do.
You be okay
they kick hateful people off their platform. All of them do.
What if they started like?
Then normal people would go to another platform, and that would get a bunch of followers.
No,
if they were so bad with it.
Naive, dude.
No, the power of choice is there. The power of the competitive market is there.
Amazing, and that always wins out.
Of course it does.
Things never get corrupt.
Of course they do. I just said that's a separate conversation, but it's funny how a lot of people will say, well, private companies can, they get to do what they want in a lot of other realms, but all of a sudden here, this private company can't kick off who they want. Why?
When I didn't say it. Did I say that?
No, I didn't, but I'm just saying that's the general argument against this. It definitely is. I didn't say you said that. I'm just saying there's people that'll be like, oh, well, there's these other companies are private companies. They do what they want. Oh, well, they treat their workers like shit. Well, whatever. They're a private company. Bottom line. Okay, fine. But so are these companies online. And guess what? If they view that a hateful person is going to hurt their bottom line more than keeping them on that platform, then they can make that decision to remove them.
I just grind at the idea if your business model is ideally to just create a way to connect with people, and then you start trying to mess with those exchanges or trying to censor certain exchanges, it feels weird, dude.
There's literally Trump Christian specific dating sites. That is what you don't like. You just said that's a niche thing that only connects one certain type of people, and there's probably one echo chamber in there.
No, I'm saying a place like Twitter is supposed to be just like an open forum.
No, because it's a private company.
Right, but the
have to be.
idea is,
and that's why they're successful. And the minute they started lopping off regular people would go elsewhere. I truly believe that. It's not. We live in times where building a website and writing the code for a website isn't as expensive as starting a company 100, 200 years ago. The capital just isn't the same. It's not as hard at all. Not even close.
Well, can we consider, Cyril, these gargantuan companies that are in place currently, right? Your Facebook, your Twitter, your Instagram, et cetera, these larger companies, even Google, their reach in what they display goes much farther than your average website. Is that a fair statement?
Of course it is. Of course.
So the point here is that if these sites are so ingrained into society, we do have to look at them a little bit differently than a private corporation. Ultimately, in the end, they are private corporations, but we do have to look at them a little differently. And I think that's what we're arguing.
I think you would say you should probably look at Google as more of a monopoly then, because it's really not.
No.
What do you mean? Say no?
I said
what?
No. I said not in the traditional sense. I do not look at them as a monopoly in the traditional sense, because how can you, when the cost to start a company is so low because of the age we live in?
That's not what defines
That's not what defines a monopoly. I wholeheartedly agree with you, but that context absolutely matters, and it does. I think
if I were to go look something up on the internet, what would I say? What verb would I use?
You would say Alexa. Or
I would say I would probably Google it.
Wait, are you saying Google is a verb because it's so ingrained in our society, Chad?
I think that's what I'm trying to say.
That's not a big. I mean,
that's a monopoly.
That's not a monopoly.
That's not a monopoly. The fact that people use a term for something, Ted, is literally not a monopoly. That means that something caught on in popular culture. Things come and go. I'm not saying Google has come and gone.
How do you search for information?
Look. Of course, you Google it. You Google it. I think you're right. I'm not saying you're wrong.
So wait, now we're on a completely different subject.
Things change as fast as they do these days. Pop culture changes. Literally, something that sticks for pop culture doesn't mean it's a monopoly. Okay, that just doesn't.
I don't know. The Kardashians may disagree.
Oh my God, they are way less popular than they used to be. They're not a monopoly. It's a ridiculous example. And I know you're joking, but still.
Okay, I don't know how you would say Google is not a monopoly, though. I mean, they dominate internet traffic and online search.
Look, I actually search on Dogpile.
I think when you guys,
myself.
I think when you guys say it's ridiculous to say they're not a monopoly, I don't necessarily disagree with that. But there is a lot of people that do search Yahoo and do search all these other search sites. When we look at the amount of searches by site, Google is, I would be surprised if Google's even 50% of all the sites that people search. I would challenge you. I would definitely challenge you. And that is not a monopoly. Standard Oil in 1910 controlled 80% of the oil market. Google does not control 80% of the search market. I promise you they don't. They're number one.
Guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to Google that information.
I genuinely bet you that they do. I bet you it's above 80%.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Especially in the United States.
And look it up.
Well, Caleb did say he was Googling it. Would you like me to also? Here, you know what, Cyril? Cyril, just to give you credence.
Damn it, 93%.
I'm going to look it up on Bing.
74%. 74%.
Wait, Cyril, I'm going to look it up on Bing, dude. Does that mean?
No, that's mobile tablet search. Caleb, breathe. That's mobile tablet search. That's fake news by Caleb, but it is very high.
Wait, what do you mean that's fake news by Caleb?
That's mobile tablet. Caleb, that is not computer. You need to read a little more carefully. It's 74%.
Hold on. Wait a minute.
Still crushes me, but it's funny that Caleb jumped on the number.
You need to stop. Cyril, I didn't even say a fucking number. You did.
You said 93%. You said 90. You absolutely did, and it's
because you said it.
All right, let's not get hung up on that. So
that's
it is
also true. That's also true.
If you can't tell me fake news when you were the one that said it.
I think that's also true. That's also true.
There's been a lot of fake news in this episode. I think the problem. What I would compare it to. What I would compare it to. Look. What I would compare it to, Cyril, is if you let's say there was a local marketplace and people came and they could just socialize and they can browse things at this marketplace, and you had people posted up listening to everything and selectively tapping people on the shoulders and telling them to step out when they've heard something that they disagree with. When I see
agree.
censorship on Twitter. That's kind of how I envision that.
I don't disagree with that. I'm just
So
saying I don't know why
that.
I don't know why there's a double standard as far as like the traditional private way you have a business and how, oh, they're private, they get to do what they want. Oh, well, they treat their workers like shit and they don't pay them a lot, or they employ illegals. It's just, oh, well, it's private business. They get to like kind of not really employ illegals. That's too far, but treat their workers like shit and like not do the right things by their workers and the environment too. Oh, it's a private business. We have to let it go. They own the land. They own the area. They can do blah, blah, blah. But then we can't say the same for these things. We have to talk about the slippery slope. That's obviously there, fine. But we can't talk about how, like, yeah, Twitter should be able to ask people to exit if they think it's hurting their business model because of hateful speech or anything else, some sort of speech that they don't like. I also would say that you worry about them being able to do that and having a slippery slope. I challenge you. They can already do that. They do that.
I know they
and
do
not,
it.
and they're
I'm
not doing it in the
it's-
wrong way. They're not. They're not asking regular people.
Really?
They're asking these.
Really?
Show me the
That's
evidence.
a bold
No.
claim.
You need to show me because I have never seen.
No,
I've
you
seen
just
them
made a
move-
claim in the positive, so you have to show me.
No problem. Here we go.
You made the
Russians-
claim.
the
I
Russians
made no
know.
claim.
I
Russians
just want to
removed.
note here, Cyril, that this is from Google search statistics, 78%.
Links
Okay.
are getting
There you go.
posted in the side.
And then
What is Yandex?
number of monthly searches worldwide.
Oh,
I want to
shit.
show you the disparity of this line graph.
My
yeah, you're
God.
right. You're right.
It's not a you're right thing. The point is that
No,
it's
I
fair to
misspoke
state
there.
that this is a
All right, I got
monopoly,
you.
right?
Yeah. No, I still don't know that, but like you're not wrong what you're saying. All right.
The way I see these things.
Click those links, Chad. We just talked about this.
Oh, what? Facebook Russian trolls removed. Okay.
Hold on. I'm screen sharing it. Bear with me just a moment. So let's see here. Facebook said on Tuesday that it had found and removed more than 270 accounts and pages controlled by Russia's Internet Research Agency, the so-called troll factory that became notorious for posting fraudulent and divisive material on the platform during the 2016 presidential election. Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook's chief executive, told Reuters that the Russian company, which operates under several names, has repeatedly acted to deceive people and manipulate people around the world, and we don't want them on Facebook anywhere. But Cyril, isn't this proving a point to Chad?
Well, hang on. Let me say something to Chad really quick.
Okay.
Show me the ones where they're removing normal people. Go ahead, Kilb.
I think Chad's point here, though, is that when another country can use a private company to impact an election, is that not that company so far ingrained into our society that's the point that Chad's kind of making?
So we should regulate Facebook?
Not regulate. We should.
So then what do we do? If you want to break them up or not break them up, if you want to call them a monopoly and say that they're a scourge, what do we do?
I'm not saying they're a scourge. I'm just making
Okay,
a point that you have to look at this in such a way that isn't
Absolutely.
the same as. Go ahead.
Okay, so what do we do? I understand. And this is my point from the beginning. They're a private company. Just let them be. Let them do what they want. There's nothing we can do. I'm not arguing that there's something we can do. I think they're private entities that can do what they want. Maybe they've made mistakes, but there's a lot of terrible accounts they've removed. There's quotes in these articles that specifically define what they define as hate speech. You want to say, oh, well, this is just an article that says hate speech and it says 66,000. Maybe they're removing inappropriate things. Go and look at what they've defined.
Well, which one do you want me to click on?
All
The
of them,
digital trends?
The last two the digital trends one defines what they call hate speech. And if you want to say that out loud, no problem, because it outlines it there. And it shows that they delete X number a month of hate speech things.
Well, my point is that
Sure.
which one do you want me to bring up?
Either the last two, I think they outlined what they defined as hate speech.
Okay, hold on.
And so that's my point. If you want to come at me and say we should regulate this somehow or break them up with regulations because they're too big, okay, tell me how we do that. Otherwise, my argument is don't do anything. They're removing things on their own. And yes, is it internally a slippery slope? We'll see. But as far as I can tell, they're removing things that are appropriate. And unless you have something else to show me that tells me otherwise of what I just said, then I don't know what to say.
So would you rather have them get rid of hate speech like this, or would you rather have it publicly available? Because I also tend to
I would just
argue
let them.
on the other side
them.
and say,
Yeah.
Why not just let it all be there so we can all see it and be like, wow, that's disgusting.
Because if
And as
because
a group,
if it gets,
as a society, say, hey, you shouldn't do that. We don't like that.
because
Why not?
because you're telling me that you trust most Americans to be able to decipher through fake things and real things, things that are hateful and not factual, between things that are, factual and, not hateful. And I don't necessarily trust most of Americans to do that. I don't.
Well, why not?
And,
Where's
and
your evidence
again,
for that?
this is a conversation that's separate than what I'm saying.
Sure.
Right. I don't have, I'm not going to repeat it, but yeah, these companies are private.
No, I get that, but let's
Sure.
move on from that.
Okay,
And
fine.
say, why wouldn't you want them to publicly display their hateful message?
Because I don't trust a majority of human beings to not be able to.
Why? You've said that.
Because they're not
why?
educated enough. Because they're not educated enough.
Look, I have a high school diploma that I barely got. I got with a C fucking average.
You went to a, I'm not going to say privileged, but definitely a better school than the worst off ones in this country.
Okay.
So I don't.
What's your point?
So I see the school that we came through, and I can't help but connect the dots. We all came through the same school system, and we are competent. We are not intelligent. We are competent.
Yeah, but I could point to something of plenty of people that came through that same school system that are not competent.
Sure, that's fair.
So what's your point?
My point is, you went to a better school than a good portion of this country, a minority still, but a good portion. So I'm not surprised that you're competent. I think that we don't educate enough people to be able to see what the heck's going on. And most of these undereducated people live inside. I'll read it, Chad. Hang on. Live inside extremely rural or extremely urban places. Besides those places, education is fine and better. Extremely rural and extremely urban places, education is underfunded. And there's not a good enough, and it's not just education, but culture there too sometimes emphasizes, things that are not, I don't want to say like helpful, but emphasizes things that are not, good for like achieving a high level of education.
I'm going to jump in and say that this needs to be next week's talk, because this is obviously very heated. I think in the past couple of minutes. No, because I need to read more. Because I need to. Because I disagree with you, right? I think that you're basing this off of suburban schools, right?
Okay, this is a whole other debate. This is a whole other debate. All I was saying is that I don't trust people.
Right.
Necessarily. I don't even trust myself sometimes. I've been duped. I don't trust human beings who are fallible to be able to.
Wait a minute.
But
don't you have to be duped to learn from that? You can't just walk into it and be like, oh, I fucking know everything. That doesn't work that way. You have to be duped. You have to make mistakes. You can't learn until you make those mistakes. And that's why I would argue that you should, to a large degree, leave a lot of that up there.
I also grain at the idea that I need some larger institution to hold my hand and tell me what is and isn't real and what should be allowed and what shouldn't be allowed.
Really? What happens at?
I think we're getting into different waters here, and I think we should talk about this next week. He said half a day suspension. Really, Chad?
For what? What is that in reference to?
To the article,
the Forbes article.
Yeah.
What? Where? I don't know where you read that.
It's right in the first paragraph.
Right. So I've read much farther past that. Sure. So I'm gonna read just a particular paragraph in here.
Hold on, Chad.
Yeah, pull it up if you will.
Yep.
I think this is what I can't eloquently state, but this guy has done a better job.
Or what?
Look, I think that,
Oh, which paragraph?
Paragraph.
For my last statement on this topic, and of course you guys can rebut after this, is you can say whatever you want out of your mouth as long as you're not threatening other people with harm or violence, right? Saying things is fine. Nobody can control that. That's ridiculous. But when we build a society online that is a privilege for you to take part in, then yes, these private companies can choose if you overall hurt their platform enough
This is my issue with this. Is
Instead
my
of help
issue.
it and say you are not allowed online. If you want to be online, how about you build your own internet and your own system to yeah, I know you understand, but
brilliant.
And Jesus Christ, you say that sarcastically, which kind of pisses me off, but it's not wrong. So whatever.
Well, that is accurate. I am saying it sarcastically. Do you want me to pretend that I'm convinced by what you're saying? Because I'm not. So this paragraph in particular, I read.
So you don't think that companies should be able to remove what they want because they're private?
I don't think you've convinced me.
No. What do you think? It doesn't matter what
should
I
allow
have
an
convinced
institution to regulate how people socialize. I'm not convinced by that, and I don't think I ever will be. Now, if you want to say that, hey,
I want to know what you think.
Threats, on what?
I want to know what you think on that question. Should they be able to remove things that they don't like, that they overall deem hurt their bottom line or platform, as opposed to help it? I don't care what you think I think or what I've convinced you. I want to know what you think. Should they have the power to remove things off of the platform they've created?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. That's okay. Fair.
But it's a slippery slope. Sure. Now, if I could just read this paragraph.
Yes.
So the question of censoring speech versus ideas is not an idle one. Many outlets this morning picked up on a frightening instance of the Twitter algorithm's new power to police not only the language we use, but the thoughts we express. In this case, a user allegedly tweeted a response to a news report about comments made by Senator John McCain and argued that it was his belief that the senator was a quote-unquote traitor who had committed formal treason against the nation. Twitter did not respond to a request for more information about what occurred in this case, and if this was indeed the tweet that caused the user to be suspended, but did not dispute that the user had been suspended or that his use of the word traitor had factored heavily into that suspension. My issue is when I'm fine with them getting rid of people who are actively threatening other people or punishing people who are...
Because people do go to jail doing that in real life.
Of course. Yeah, that's I'm pretty sure that's the law. But I'm I also don't grind with the idea that we should get rid of figures who abuse their power and their followers and sort of guide that hate in a different direction. That's also, I think that's not okay.
I think what we can agree on is that leadership matters there, and you need to have someone who will draw the right line. Because yes, you do want them to have the power to remove certain things that they deem might hurt their bottom line because it's hateful or what have you, okay, as opposed to help it. But you also don't want them going so far as to just start willy-nilly being able to remove whatever the heck they want internally, because that's dangerous. So look, your CEO needs to be the right kind of leader that draws the line at the right place. And that's why leadership matters in a lot of ways.
Cyril, real quick before we move on, what if there is, people decide, I don't like this because I can't talk about my far-right viewpoints. I'm going to get off of Facebook and I'm going to go to Trump Book, right?
Sure.
And in Trump Book, when you log on, it's just insanely hate-filled.
Sure.
Are you okay with that? Are you okay with that being consolidated into a niche of the internet that nobody can see? I mean, obviously it'd be ignorant for me to say that that's not already happening, but my point is,
I would say
is that if it's on a platform in which most people are on, we can all see that collectively and denounce it for what it is, as opposed to hiding in the dark corners of our society and the internet where we can't confront it as a group, as a society.
I appreciate you going in the direction of what we'd like to see, which is people denouncing it.
But isn't that the goal here?
The idea not spreading. But I think that, sure, there might be a little bit of that, but it seems to me, opinion by Cyril, that there is also a heavy counterbalance that seems to be either equal or more, where people are also getting convinced of this misinformation and going worse off than they should be and starting to believe this stuff because it's getting shared on a platform where everybody's on. If we consolidate them in a hateful platform and network, their hateful stuff gets shared only among their hateful selves. If they're allowed to post on a platform where there's a lot of people, which you just said, I would like to think that people would denounce and put those fires out. But first of all, these people don't usually have their minds being changed because they're extreme. And I think, in my opinion, the overall net accruement is in more of people saying, hey, look, this is something to think about. Look at this. Maybe Muslims are terrible and doing all these things that are potential lies. Or maybe, conservatives are doing all these terrible things and these lies, and people are believing it more. That's what I think.
But here's
opinion, though.
Right, agreed. And here's my opinion. My opinion is that when that stuff is out in the open, we as a group can see that and say, I'm not going to engage with that individual, right? And those people, you're never going to convince the hardcore, right? You're never going to convince the hardcore right and the hardcore left. It's just not going to happen. And that's not my goal. My goal is to confront the hardcore right and hardcore left, to convince those who are watching to say, hey, that right there is not a very good idea. I'm going to stay away. Yeah. That's my point. And that's where I'm coming from.
And this is where it gets tough. And this is where it gets tough. And this is where it gets tough, because this is another opinion of mine. I think you can do that more so in person. I think social media is actually corrosive for discourse. I don't think it's helpful. So when we talk about social media, it's a whole different conversation than just what we can do in person. We humanize people when we see them in person. Online, we're much more vitriolic and trolly. True. And so that matters, I feel. And
I wonder how much of that online corrosive behavior does spill over, right? I mean, you look at what's this guy's name? Sidethorn and Conspiracy Grandma or some shit. What's their names in that?
Yeah, that was Sidethorn. It was Sidethorn journalism. I can't remember the guy's name. Right. But the other one was Conspiracy Granny. Yep.
Conspiracy Granny, right? How much of the way they act in public, the way they act, especially towards that pastor, right? I feel bad for that pastor that he has to deal with that, but how much of that realization that I'm not online anymore, right? That crossover of him literally looking at this guy and saying, your daughter isn't even a real person. You can't even provide me a death certificate.
Right.
Yeah. So are you really going to prevent that?
No, and that's why, and I couldn't help but think this when I was watching the video, and I'm glad you brought it up. Yep. I love law enforcement. That's why I'm glad we have the justice system, because we have a way to stay calm, call 911, and press charges, and we have a justice system to deliver justice. And there they go. They got arrested and they got taken away.
That whole thing, but it's also difficult for those who are already in the right. I mean, that pastor had to talk about how those guys would literally hide and run every time he tried to confront them, because
I understand
in
it's
that
tough,
state,
but justice was served, and we live in modern times where justice can be served in most cases. I think 200, 300, 400 years ago, it was a lot tougher.
Do you think this is in any way, shape, or form, all of these conspiracy theories, all of these, flat Earth, things like that? Because I've heard this claim before, and I'm not convinced of it, but I pose the question here. Is this in any way connected to our general mental health in our country? Is that an ever-growing issue, do you think?
Yes,
and
because
I think related to that?
Yeah, I think it is, because I think that you can get one person who is mentally unstable, who uses the power of the internet to change minds and reach people with their corrosive, nasty ideas. And there's always the opposite argument, Caleb. You're not wrong. Me and you watched that video, and we both sympathize with. We understand that these people are hateful and 99.9% not right and untrue and being assholes. And so we side with the people who we sympathize for and we hurt for, because they did happen. So our reaction is the right one. I just don't know if everybody would have the right reaction. I think enough people could be convinced. I think even if one person is convinced by these hateful people that otherwise wouldn't have been, that's bad.
Sure, but at the same time, if that's out in public view, and I guess that's my point,
I understand.
Is that whole public view thing. I would rather have Nazis in full view so that I could say no, and I could look at my daughter and say, no, that is wrong, and I'll tell you why it's wrong. I'll explain to you why it's wrong, and then you can make your own judgment from there. That's the point, I think, because we rail against this constantly, all three of us, this echo chamber of bias.
Yes.
Right, and that's bad. That's a bad thing. We don't want that. What we want is everyone shouting into the same chamber, so that eventually decent ideas.
A meritocracy.
And you know what? To be honest with you, real quick, props to that pastor. I mean,
Jesus, for not clocking that guy in the face.
Seriously, he is a better man than I.
Oh,
he's a significally better man than I.
I was getting so PO'd watching that guy talk.
You can tell that he's had to go through this
a lot.
Times.
Yeah, he's just numb to it.
I think he even talked about it in the video how these guys are just the tip of the iceberg.
Jeez,
we're not people come to the church to look and right. These guys just happen to be there at the same time,
Right.
you know.
Right.
And that guy, whoever that guy is,
Sad.
we all need to be more like him, the pastor of that church.
Yes,
You know,
I agree.
because he kept his cool. He understood that this guy is just a crazy person, and tried his best to deal with him accordingly. And he handled it in a way that I'm not sure
weird.
that I would have. Quite
you
frankly.
You could tell that they didn't want to run into him, and I was shocked that Vice caught him on camera. Very, very surprising to me, because the way that he reacted to him jumping out of that Jeep unexpectedly, he shook his hand. And I think he was just kind of shocked that they actually ran into each other, because and he said that they were trying to avoid him for a long time and they were successful. So he was like, oh crap, it happened. So he kind of shook his hand, and it's so weird how it plays out. He kind of shook his hand and it was like, here he is. Oh, it's the pastor. And then like, not even without breaking a sweat, a beat, or missing a second, he went right into like, you fucking son of a bitch, lying son of a fucking. I'm just like, what in the world is going on? It was so sad.
Well, and they have a history together, but I think the fact that Vice caught this on camera,
it's crazy
to see, and this is what I'm talking about, Cyril. That interaction between people who are just way out there.
I know.
And then people who are sane human beings that go, look, I understand that this guy doesn't have his wits about him, and I need to deal with him accordingly. And I have to be the bigger person. I have to be the bigger human. I have to understand the context of what's happening here and deal with it appropriately. And that, if we could have that online, that would be, right, in a perfect world, as we always talk about, having appropriate discourse and dealing with people who are way out there properly.
Well, one thing I also considered when I saw just how much of an asshole this guy was being to this pastor's face, who had recently lost his daughter, right? It had only been a couple years, right? Not even. Regardless.
I don't think you ever get over something like that. But
no, of course not. But like, you know what I mean? Like, Jesus Christ, man. The one thing I did consider is I wonder how that exchange would have gone if the cameras weren't there. I wonder if that guy would have been as ballsy as he was. I truly think that if they met each other, those cameras weren't there, and it was just those two guys, that guy would have just tuck-tailed and run again. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
these people feel so safe online, and they feel so safe in front of a camera. But dude, when all that stuff is gone and you are talking to another human being, I refuse to believe that he would be as much of an asshole as he was. But I don't know. That was one thing I considered.
Yeah, but that's the thing though, Chad, is that guy was still an asshole.
Right, but the cameras were there. This guy felt safe. He felt safe. When you're just talking to somebody like that, if it was just them two, I don't think it would have played out like that. I don't think.
Because I don't know if you saw, but you know, Granny Conspiracy or whatever her name is, she had a GoPro the whole time.
Yeah,
she was filming as well. But that's a valid point.
Because you feel safe, and it's part of your online identity. And oh no, I feel so lost in the modern world. I need an identity, so I latch on to bad ideologies. Jesus, man.
I know, dude. It's sad.
Shall we move on?
Watching that, you know what else we should watch for the next week? You guys should watch the next.
I already did.
Rise and Fall of an Alt-Right Gladiator.
Oh, I also watched that.
I didn't see that. No, I hadn't seen that yet.
Well, dude, I'll be honest.
Next week.
I clicked on that link that you sent, and I just went down a rabbit hole of these weird documentaries that Vice has done.
Yo, I'm not a big fan of Vice in the way that they tend to be very left-leaning, but what I am a fan of...
It's a mixed bag.
They give a fair shake to just about anybody.
I was going to say, why are they left-leaning?
Oh yeah, you just have to scroll through their channel through a little bit, and you'll see. Some
I think you can misconstrue them as left leaning. Not misconstrue, but I think where you can say that they're left leaning is what they cover. But Caleb's right. Whatever they cover, they don't cover it unfairly.
No. They give everyone a fair shake.
They do have opinion pieces, though, don't they?
They do, and those are.
Which one?
Have you gone on the site and read the articles?
No, I haven't done that. I don't care.
So that would be step 2. Sure. And if you went into step 2, you would say, okay, I don't do what Caleb was saying. Their videos, though, and their documentaries.
They're journalists. Their journalists are old school in the sense that they just interview and they just. This is it's not even that they give a fair shake. They just ask questions. They don't try to insert their opinion. Once again, I would say 80 to 90% of the time they don't insert their opinion, which is pretty good these days for a news organization. How about that? And once again, because of what they cover.
We can do better.
Yes. Oh, stop. God damn it. Turn my words against me. But what they cover, yeah, you could say, like, why do they only cover things that seem to because, like, there's some things I agree with the right on, there's some things I agree with the left on, right? It seems like they cover things that, like, most level-headed people like us would be like, okay, well, this is kind of just like, it falls in the left kind of is right about this. They cover a lot of climate change. They cover a lot of things that are just like, all right, well, there's just a wide swath of things that get discussed, and they cover.
I hold on real quick. You're right, but I just sent one that this one's for next week. Okay, I really want Cyril to watch this, and I want Chad to watch this specifically so that they get a bit more perspective. Yeah,
Interesting.
Yes, Cyril will eat this up. I think he'll have a lot to say about this.
Not surprised.
I'm surprised I didn't see that in my suggestion. Let me tell you, when I did go on that binge,
so real quick to give people context, it's how the KKK preys on American veterans. Yeah, we'll do that one next week, though.
Sure.
I watched the ones they did in like West Africa. Dude, those reporters have got a set on them.
I know, dude. You're right.
They are.
I think in another life, I would have been a war journalist. That would be a very cool job.
I certainly would not have the clackers to pull that off.
Oh, the clackers. There you go.
I'm just saying.